The distress signal came through at midnight, ship time. It was weak and broken, cutting in and out like a dying heartbeat. Lieutenant Yuna was the first to hear it. She sat alone in the communications room, her fingers moving across the screen as she tried to clean up the signal. This is shuttle crash. Need help, children. The words were enough. Yuna hit the emergency alarm and ran to the bridge. Captain Ga arrived within minutes, her hair still messy from sleep. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a voice that could command a room without raising its volume. Behind her came Navigator Taiwan, a tall man with a scar running down his left cheek, and Chief Security Officer Yunji, who was already checking her weapon. "What do we have?" Ga asked. Yuna pulled up the star map on the main screen. A small moon appeared, spinning slowly in the darkness of space. It was gray and covered in sharp crystal formations that rose from its surface like broken teeth. "The signal is coming from here," Yuna said. "It matches the frequency used by Telleran mine shuttles. They're saying there was a crash. There are children on board." Ga did not hesitate. "Set a course. Maximum speed." The ship, called the Horizon's Edge, was a galactic survey vessel. Its job was to explore unknown parts of space, make maps of new planets, and study alien life. But when someone needed help, exploration could wait. That was the human way. It took 4 hours to reach the moon. From orbit, they could see the crash site clearly. The shuttle had broken apart when it hit the ground, scattering pieces across a wide area. Smoke still rose from some sections. The crystal formations around the crash glowed with a faint blue light, beautiful and dangerous at the same time. "The atmosphere is toxic," Yuna reported, reading her scanner. "We'll need breathing masks. And there's something else." She paused, looking at her screen with confusion. "I'm detecting multiple life signs near the main wreckage. Some are small, probably the children. But one of them is very large." "How large?" Yunji asked. 3 meters. Maybe more." A heavy silence filled the bridge. Taiwan's hand moved to the scar on his face. He had gotten it 15 years ago, during the massacre on Arcturus Prime. He knew what kind of creature could grow that large in the wild regions of space. "Korath," he said quietly. The word hung in the air like poison. Korath were the nightmares of the galaxy. They were massive beasts with black scales harder than armor, 6 limbs that ended in claws sharp enough to cut through metal, and jaws powerful enough to bite through a starship's hull. They were hunters, killers, monsters that felt no fear and showed no mercy. Every child in the galaxy grew up hearing stories about Korath. They were the reason some colonies failed. They were the reason some ships never came home. "We don't know that for certain," Ga said, though her voice was careful. "Yuna, can you identify the species?" "Not from here. The crystal formations are interfering with detailed scans." Ga looked at her crew. She could see the fear in their eyes, but she could also see something else. Determination, duty, the knowledge that somewhere down on that moon, children were waiting for help. "We go," she said. "Full team. Weapons ready. But we do not shoot first." "Understood?" Everyone nodded. The rescue shuttle descended through clouds of toxic gas, its lights cutting through the darkness. When it landed, the team stepped out onto ground that crunched under their boots. The crystal formations towered over them, some as tall as buildings, reflecting their lights in strange patterns. "Spread out," Yunji ordered. "Teams of 2. Report anything you find." Senior medic Dohan was paired with a young engineer named Somi. They moved east, toward a large section of the crashed shuttle that had come to rest against a cliff of crystals. Dohan was a quiet man in his 30s, with gentle hands and calm eyes. He had been a medic for 12 years and had seen many terrible things. He had learned that panic helped no one. His scanner beeped softly, showing life signs ahead. "There," he said, pointing to a dark opening in the wreckage. Somi looked nervous. "Should we wait for backup?" Doan shook his head. "Those children don't have time." He pulled out his flashlight and moved forward. The inside of the wrecked shuttle was a mess of twisted metal and broken equipment. Dohan had to climb over debris, squeeze through narrow gaps, and duck under hanging wires. The whole time, his scanner kept beeping, telling him he was getting closer. Then he found them. The cargo hold had partially collapsed, creating a small protected space. And in that space, pressed against the far wall, 3 Telleran children huddled together. They were small, with blue-gray skin and large dark eyes that reflected Dohan's flashlight. They looked terrified, but they were not looking at him. They were looking at the thing between them and the door. Dohan turned slowly, and his heart nearly stopped. A Karath Alpha lay in the darkness. It was even bigger than the scanners had suggested, a mountain of black scales and muscle. One of its 6 limbs was pinned under a fallen beam. A piece of metal debris had gone through its side, and dark blood pooled beneath it. Its amber eyes, bright as burning fire, fixed on Dohan. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Dohan could hear his own breathing, loud inside his mask. He could feel sweat running down his back. Every instinct told him to run, to scream for help, to get away from this monster as fast as possible. But then he noticed something. The Karath was not attacking. It was not even growling. It was simply lying there, watching him, its body positioned between the children and the breach in the hull where toxic air was seeping in. It was blocking the poison with its own body. Dohan looked at the children. They were scared, yes, but they were not hurt. Despite being trapped with one of the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy, they did not have a single scratch on them. Understanding came slowly, like sunrise after a long night. This Karath was not hunting these children. It was protecting them. Dohan's fear did not disappear. He was not stupid. He knew that one wrong move could get him killed. But something changed inside him in that moment. He was a medic. His job was to help the wounded. And right now, there was a wounded creature in front of him. A creature that had chosen to protect instead of destroy. He knelt down slowly, keeping his movements calm and visible. He opened his medical kit. The Karath's eyes followed his hands. "Easy," Doan said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to help." He did not know if the creature could understand his words, but he hoped it could understand his tone, his body language, his intent. The Karath exhaled slowly, a deep rumbling sound that vibrated through the floor. It did not attack. Dohan began to work. Behind him. Sami's voice came through his communicator, panicked and confused. He heard Yunji shouting orders, heard the sound of running boots approaching. But he did not stop. He could not stop because in that dark cargo hold, surrounded by wreckage and death, something impossible was happening. A human was saving a monster, and the monster was letting him. The news spread through the ship like fire through dry grass. Senior Medic Don was treating a Karath Alpha, not shooting it, not running from it, treating it. Captain Ga stood on the bridge, watching the live video feed from Dohan's helmet camera. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands were gripping the edge of the console so hard her knuckles had turned white. On the screen, Dohan was working inside the creature's wound. His hands were covered in dark blood. The scales around the injury had edges like broken glass, and every time he moved, they cut into his forearms. Red human blood mixed with the black blood of the Karath, but he did not stop. He did not even slow down. "He's going to get himself killed," Navigator Taiwan said. His voice was tight with anger and something else. Something that might have been fear. Those things don't understand mercy. The moment it has enough strength, it will tear him apart. Look at it, Una said quietly. She was standing close to the screen, her eyes fixed on the Korath's face. Really, look at it. Taiwan did not want to look. 15 years ago, he had watched creatures, just like this one, destroy everything he loved. He had seen his brother die, had heard his screams as the monsters tore through their shelter. He had survived only because he had hidden under a pile of bodies, lying still while the Korath searched for more prey. But something in Yuna's voice made him look anyway. The Korath Alpha was watching Doan work. Its massive head was turned toward him, its amber eyes tracking every movement of his hands. His mouth was slightly open, showing rows of teeth that could crush bone like paper. It was breathing slowly, each exhale a hot wind that made Dohan's hair move. It could kill him in a second. Less than a second. One bite, one swipe of those terrible claws, and the medic would be dead. But it was not attacking. It was waiting. It knows, Yuna whispered. It knows he's helping. GA turned away from the screen. What's the status of the rescue team? Onji has the perimeter secured, a crew member reported. The children have been moved to the shuttle. They're scared but unharmed. Yunji is requesting permission to extract Dohan by force. Denied. Jaehee's voice was firm. If we try to pull him away, we might trigger an attack. He stays until he's finished or until the situation changes. On the screen, Dohan reached deeper into the wound. The metal debris had gone through muscle and scraped against bone. If he did not remove it carefully, he could cause even more damage. His medical training told him the proper procedure. His human instincts screamed at him to run away. He ignored his instincts. Almost there, he said, more to himself than anyone else. Almost there. The Korath made a sound. It was low and deep, vibrating through the floor and up through Dohan's knees. It was not a growl. It was not a warning. It was something else, something he could not identify. Later, Yuna would tell him it was probably a sound of pain. Korath had been classified as unfeeling monsters, creatures that did not experience suffering like other species did. But that classification was wrong. Everything they thought they knew about Korath might be wrong. Dohan pulled the metal shard free. It came out with a wet sound, followed by a rush of dark blood. He immediately pressed biofoam into the wound, a special medical substance that expanded to fill the space and stop the bleeding. The Korath's body shuddered. Done, Dohan breathed. The worst is done. He sat back on his heels, suddenly aware of how tired he was. His arms were covered in cuts. His hands were shaking. He had been working for almost 2 hours, operating on a creature that could have killed him at any moment, but he had done it. The Korath would live. He started to stand up, planning to step back and give the creature space. That was when it happened. The Korath forelimb moved. It was a massive thing, thick as a tree trunk, covered in scales that shone like polished obsidian. The claws at the end were each as long as Dohan's hand, curved and sharp and deadly. Dohan froze. The limb reached toward him, slow and deliberate. He could not run. He could not even breathe. He watched it come closer, waiting for the killing blow that would end his life. The claws did not strike him. Instead, the Korath's appendage wrapped around his arm, just above the elbow. The grip was firm, but not painful. The claws touched his skin but did not pierce it. The creature held him the way a child might hold onto a parent's hand in a crowded place, and then it would not let go. Doan? Jihee's voice came through his communicator. What's happening? Why aren't you moving? I can't. Doan tried to pull his arm free. The Korath's grip tightened slightly, just enough to stop him. It's holding me. Holding you? Is it hurting you? Doan looked down at the massive appendage wrapped around his arm, at the claws that could slice through metal resting gently against his skin, at the amber eyes watching him with something that looked almost like desperation. No, he said slowly. No, it's not hurting me. It's just holding on. On the bridge, Taiwan slammed his hand against the console. It's taking him hostage. We need to go in there and kill that thing before it kills him. Wait. Yuna grabbed his arm. Look at the children. The video feed from another camera showed the 3 Telleran children in the rescue shuttle. They were talking to Yunji, their small voices high and fast. Even through the translator, their words were hard to follow because they kept interrupting each other. But slowly, the story came together. Their mining shuttle had been attacked by raiders. Bad people who wanted to steal their cargo. Their parents had tried to fight, tried to protect them, but the raiders had won. The shuttle had been damaged in the battle, and it crashed on this moon. The children had been sure they were going to die. The hull was broken. Toxic air was coming in. Strange creatures with too many legs were crawling out of the crystal formations. Hungry and dangerous. Then the Korath had appeared. They had screamed when they saw it. They had hidden in the smallest corner they could find, holding each other, waiting to be eaten. But the Korath did not eat them. It had killed the crawling creatures. It had blocked the breach in the hull with its own body. It had curled around them at night when the temperature dropped, keeping them warm with its heat. For 3 days, it had protected them without asking for anything in return. It saved us, the oldest child said, tears running down her blue-gray face. The monster saved us. Silence fell over the bridge. Taiwan's hand slowly dropped from the console. His face was pale, confused, like a man whose entire understanding of the world had just been shattered. Jie looked at the screen, showing Doan and the Korath. The creature still held the medic's arm, its grip gentle but unbreakable. Its eyes had not left Dahan's face. It protected those children for 3 days, Yuna said softly. And now it's wounded, vulnerable, surrounded by armed strangers. The only one who showed it kindness was Dawn, the only one who helped instead of threatened. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was filled with wonder. It's not holding him hostage. It's holding on to the first being in days that made it feel safe. Dohan heard these words through his communicator. He looked down at the Korath's massive head, now resting on the ground, exhausted from pain and blood loss. Its amber eyes were half closed, but they still watched him. Slowly, carefully, he lifted his free hand. He placed it on top of the creature's scaled head. It's okay, he said softly. I'm not going anywhere. The Korath exhaled, a long breath that seemed to release tension from its entire body. Its grip on his arm did not loosen, but somehow, Doan did not mind. The rescue shuttle returned to the horizon's edge with everyone except Dohan. He could not leave because the Korath would not release his arm. So Jie made a decision that shocked her entire crew. She ordered the medical team to bring the Korath onto the ship. It took 12 people and a cargo crane to move the creature. The Korath was barely conscious by then, weak from blood loss and pain. But even in that state, its grip on Doan never loosened. Not once. They put the creature in the largest cargo bay, the one usually used for storing equipment and supplies. Medical beds were brought in, along with machines to monitor vital signs and bags of nutrient fluid that Yuna had specially mixed based on what little they knew about Korath biology. Through all of this, Doan stayed by the creature's side. He had no choice. Every time someone tried to separate them, the Korath would growl, a sound so deep and terrible that it made the walls vibrate. So they stopped trying. Hours passed. The ship left orbit and began its journey back to the nearest station. And still, the Korath held on. Yunji came to see them on the second day. She stood in the doorway of the cargo bay, her hand resting on her weapon, her eyes fixed on the creature with cold hatred. "Captain wants a report," she said. "How's your arm?" Dohan looked down at where the Korath's appendage wrapped around him. The scales were warm against his skin. The claws, so deadly and sharp, had not even scratched him. "Fine," he said. "It's being careful." "It's a monster," Yunji replied. "Monsters don't do careful. This one does." Yunji shook her head. She did not understand. She did not want to understand. To her, Korath were enemies, threats to be eliminated. The idea that one might be capable of gentleness went against everything she had been trained to believe. "The Galactic Council has rules about these creatures," she said. "They're classified as extinction-level threats. Any Korath found outside quarantine zones must be killed. No exceptions." Doan felt the creature stir beside him. Its amber eyes opened slowly, focusing on Yunji. A low sound came from its throat. Not quite a growl, but something close. "It understands you," Doan said quietly. Yunji's hand tightened on her weapon. "That's impossible. 2 days ago, I would have agreed. Now?" Doan placed his free hand on the Korath's head, a gesture that had become natural to him. "Now I'm not sure what's possible anymore." The creature's eyes moved from Yunji to Doan. The tension in its body slowly released. The sound in its throat faded. It trusted him to handle this situation. It trusted him. Yunji watched this exchange with an expression Dohan could not read. Then she turned and left without another word. That night, Taiwan came. He did not announce himself. He simply appeared in the doorway, standing in the shadows, staring at the Korath with eyes full of ghosts. Dahan had been told about Taiwan's past, about Arcturus Prime, about his brother. He understood why the navigator might hate Korath more than anyone else on the ship. "You can come in," Doham said. "It won't hurt you." Taiwan did not move. "You don't know that." "No, I don't, but I believe it." A long silence followed. The only sounds were the hum of the ship's engines and the slow, steady breathing of the Korath. "My brother was 19, Taiwan finally said. His voice was barely above a whisper. He wanted to be a pilot. He used to talk about flying between the stars, seeing places no one had ever seen before. He was so excited when we got assigned to Arcturus Prime, a new colony, a new beginning." Doan listened without interrupting. The Korath came on the 5th night. We didn't even know they were there until they were already inside the walls. My brother, he tried to fight. He grabbed a weapon and ran toward the screaming. He wanted to protect people. Taiwan's voice cracked. They tore him apart. I saw it happen. I saw everything. The Korath's ears moved slightly, tilting toward Taiwan. Its eyes remained closed, but Dahan could tell it was listening. I've spent 15 years hating them, Taiwan continued. 15 years dreaming about killing every last one. And now you're telling me one of them saved children? One of them protected instead of destroyed. I'm not telling you anything, Dahan said gently. I'm just showing you what I've seen. Taiwan finally stepped into the cargo bay. He walked slowly, each step heavy with years of pain and anger. He stopped a few meters from the Korath, close enough to see the rise and fall of its breathing, far enough to run if he needed to. Why? He asked, not to Dawn, to the creature. The Korath opened its eyes. For a long moment, they looked at each other. The man who had lost everything to Korath, and the Korath who had given everything to protect strangers. Two beings from opposite sides of a war that had lasted generations. The Korath made a sound. It was soft, almost gentle, completely unlike the growls and roars that Taiwan remembered from his nightmares. It sounded like sadness, like regret. Then it turned its head away and closed its eyes again. Taiwan stood there for a long time. Dohan could see tears running down his scarred cheek, though the navigator made no sound. I don't forgive them, Taiwan finally said. I can't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. That's okay, Dohan replied. No one is asking you to. But this one. Taiwan looked at the Korath's massive form, at the bandages covering its wounds, at the way its appendage wrapped around Dawn's arm like it was the most precious thing in the world. This one is different. I can see that now. He left without saying goodbye, but something had changed in the way he held himself. Some of the weight he had been carrying seemed lighter. On the third day, Yuna brought news from her research. She had been analyzing biological samples from the Korath, trying to understand its physiology. What she found changed everything. "It's female," she announced, sitting down across from Dawn in the cargo bay. And not just any female. She's a mother. Dawn felt the Korath's grip tighten slightly on his arm. "What do you mean?" "Korath alphas have a special hormone that's released after giving birth. It stays in their system for years. This one has extremely high levels of it, but also high levels of stress hormones associated with loss." Yuna paused, her voice softening. She had children of her own, Dawn, recently, and something happened to them. The Korath made a low sound, almost like a whimper. Its eyes opened, looking at Yuna, then at Dawn. There was pain in those amber depths, pain that went far beyond physical wounds. "She lost her babies," Dawn said slowly, understanding finally coming together. "And then she found those Telleran children, alone, scared, helpless." "Korath alphas have strong maternal instincts," Yuna confirmed. "When they lose their own offspring, they sometimes adopt others. It's rare, but it happens." She didn't protect those children because they were useful or because she wanted something in return. She protected them because to her, they were her children now. Dawn looked down at the massive creature beside him. At her scales, dark as night. At her claws, sharp as blades. At her eyes, now watching him with something that might have been hope. "And me?" he asked. "Why won't she let me go?" Yuna smiled sadly. "Because you saved her, Dawn. You showed her kindness when she was at her most vulnerable. In her mind, in her heart, you're part of her family now too." The Korath pressed her head against Dawn's side. Her grip on his arm loosened for just a moment, then tightened again. Not threatening, never threatening, just holding on to the only family she had left. The message from the Galactic Council arrived on the fourth day. Captain Jihei read it alone in her quarters, then read it again, hoping the words would somehow change. They did not. The Council had learned about the Korath on board the Horizon's Edge. Someone had talked, or perhaps the information had leaked through official channels. It did not matter how. What mattered was the response. The message was clear. Korath alphas were classified as extinction-level threats. The creature must be terminated immediately. Failure to comply would result in the entire crew being charged with endangering galactic security. The punishment for such a charge was life imprisonment. Jihei gathered her senior officers in the medical bay, where Dawn still sat beside the Korath. The creature was stronger now, able to lift her head and look around with alert amber eyes. But she still held Dawn's arm, and she still refused to let go. "I won't pretend this is an easy situation," Jihei said. Her voice was steady, but tired. The weight of command had never felt heavier. "The Council has given us an order. We all know what happens if we disobey." Yunji stood with her arms crossed, her face hard. "Then we follow the order. We sedate the creature, remove Dohan safely, and do what needs to be done. It's a monster. It's killed hundreds of people over its lifetime, probably thousands. One act of protection doesn't change that." "We don't know what she's done," Yuna argued. "We've assumed all Korath are the same because that's what we were taught. But we've never tried to study them, never tried to communicate with them. What if we've been wrong all along?" "Wrong?" Yunji laughed bitterly. "Tell that to the families of Arcturus Prime. Tell that to every colony that's been wiped out by these things. Those attacks might not have been random. Una pressed on. Korath are territorial. What if those colonies were built on their breeding grounds? What if we invaded their homes and they were just defending themselves? So now we're making excuses for them? I'm asking questions. That's what scientists do. Enough. GA raised her hand. The arguing stopped. This isn't about what happened in the past. This is about what we do right now, today, with this specific creature. She looked at the Korath, at her massive body, covered in healing wounds, at her amber eyes, watching the humans with an intelligence that was impossible to deny, at her appendage, wrapped gently around Doan's arm. Doan, GA said, you've spent more time with her than anyone. What do you think? Doan was silent for a long moment. He had barely slept in 4 days. His arm ached from being held in the same position. He was hungry, tired, and completely overwhelmed by everything that had happened. But when he spoke, his voice was clear. She's not a monster, he said. She's a mother who lost everything. Her children, her home, her entire world. And instead of giving up, instead of dying alone, she found 3 scared children and decided they were worth protecting. She stood between them and death for 3 days. She took poison into her own body so they could breathe. She fought creatures that tried to eat them. She kept them warm when they were cold. He paused, looking down at the Korath's head resting against his leg. And when I found her, when I started to help her, she could have killed me 100 times. She was in pain, scared, surrounded by strangers. Any animal would have attacked. But she didn't. She let me help her. She trusted me. Doan lifted his free hand and placed it on the Korath's head. She closed her eyes, a deep rumbling sound coming from her chest. It almost sounded like purring. I can't tell you what to do, Doan continued. I'm just a medic. I don't give orders. But I can tell you what I believe. And I believe that killing her would be wrong. Not just morally wrong, but factually wrong. We would be destroying something precious, something we don't understand, something that might change everything we think we know about Korath. The room was silent. Then Taiwan spoke. Everyone turned to look at him in surprise. Of all the people on the ship, he had the most reason to want the Korath dead. His hatred had been like a fire burning inside him for 15 years. Doan is right, Taiwan said quietly. Yunji stared at him. You can't be serious. I spent my whole life hating them. Taiwan's voice was rough with emotion. I've dreamed about revenge every single night. But this creature, this Korath, she saved children while we sat on our ship following regulations. She risked her life for strangers while we debated whether to help. He looked at the Korath, and for the first time, there was no hatred in his eyes. Only a deep, painful sadness. My brother died trying to protect people, he said. That was the kind of person he was. Brave, selfless, good. And this Korath, this monster that I should hate more than anything in the universe, she did the same thing. She protected people who couldn't protect themselves. He took a shaky breath. If we kill her, what does that make us? What does it say about humanity? That we only believe in mercy when it's convenient? That we only value life when it looks like ours? No one had an answer. GA stood in the center of the room, surrounded by her crew, facing an impossible choice. Follow orders and kill a creature that had done nothing but protect and trust. Or disobey the council and risk everything to save a life that the galaxy said didn't matter. She thought about why she had become a starship captain in the first place. It wasn't for glory or power or wealth. It was because she believed in something. She believed that the purpose of exploration was not just to find new things, but to understand them. To look at the unknown and see possibility instead of threat. Send a message to the council, she said finally. Tell them we have new information about Korath behavior that requires further study. Tell them the creature is not a threat, and is cooperating with our crew. Tell them we request permission to bring her to a research facility instead of terminating her." "They'll say no," Yoonji warned. "Probably, but I'm going to ask anyway. And while we wait for their response, we're going to document everything. Every behavior, every interaction. Every piece of evidence that this Korath is not what we thought she was." Jihei looked at her crew, at their uncertain faces, at the hope and fear and confusion in their eyes. "We became explorers because we wanted to discover new truths," she said. "Well, here's a new truth staring us in the face. A Korath can protect. A Korath can trust. A Korath can love." She gestured to the massive creature lying in the cargo bay, still holding Dohon's arm, still watching them with those intelligent amber eyes. "And I will not destroy that truth just because it makes people uncomfortable." The council's response came 12 hours later. As expected, they denied the request. The order remained. "Terminate the creature immediately." GA read the message. Then she deleted it. "No one saw that," she told her crew. "We had technical difficulties. The message was corrupted. We never received clear instructions." Yoonji opened her mouth to protest, then closed it. She looked at the Korath, at Dawn, at the gentle way the creature held the medic's arm. "Technical difficulties," she repeated slowly. "Yes, I remember now. Very unfortunate." The Horizon's Edge continued on its course, carrying a secret that could destroy them all, but also carrying hope that the universe was bigger than their fears, hope that understanding could overcome hatred, hope that even monsters could become family. 3 months had passed since the rescue on that distant moon. 3 months of secrets, of hidden reports, of careful planning. The Horizon's Edge had become something more than a survey vessel. It had become a sanctuary. The Korath, whom Dohan had named Baram after an ancient word meaning wind, now lived in a specially modified cargo bay. The walls had been reinforced. Soft bedding covered the floor. A large screen on one wall played images of forests and mountains and oceans, places that seemed to calm her when she grew restless. She had learned to communicate, not through words, but through sounds and gestures that the ship's computer could interpret. When she was hungry, she made a low humming noise. When she was happy, she rumbled like distant thunder. When she wanted attention from Doan, she would tap the floor with her tail in a specific rhythm. And she had finally released his arm. It had happened gradually, over many weeks. First, she would let go for a few minutes while he ate or used the bathroom. Then for an hour while he slept nearby. Then for longer periods as she learned that he would always come back, that he would never abandon her. Now she only held him when she was scared or upset, when strangers came aboard, when loud noises echoed through the ship, when bad dreams made her whimper in her sleep. During those times, Dohan would sit beside her and let her wrap her massive appendage around his arm, and he would stroke her head until she calmed down. The crew had changed too. Eunji still did not fully trust the Korath. She still checked her weapon every time she passed the cargo bay, but she had stopped calling Baram a monster. Sometimes, when she thought no one was watching, she would stand in the doorway and watch the creature sleep, a strange expression on her face. Taiwan visited often. He would sit in the corner of the cargo bay and talk. Not to Dawn, to Baram. He would tell her about his brother, about the good times they had shared, about the dreams that had died on Arcturus Prime. Baram would listen without moving, her amber eyes fixed on him, occasionally making soft sounds that seemed like sympathy. Once, Taiwan had broken down crying. Baram had risen slowly, crossed the cargo bay, and gently pressed her massive head against his chest. He had frozen at first, terrified. Then he had wrapped his arms around her neck and sobbed until he had no tears left. They never spoke about it afterward. But something had healed between them. Something important. Yuna spent hours studying Barum, documenting her behavior, analyzing her biology. She had written dozens of research papers, all of them secret, all of them waiting for the day they could be shared with the galaxy. She's remarkable, Yuna told Doan one evening. Her brain structure suggests intelligence far beyond what we assumed. She can solve complex problems, recognize individual faces, even understand abstract concepts like fairness and gratitude. We've been treating Korath like animals for centuries, but they're not. They're people. Different from us, but people. The Telleran children sent video messages every week. They had been reunited with their extended family on a distant colony, but they had not forgotten their protector. They would show Barum their drawings, tell her about their school, sing her songs in their high voices. Barum would press her nose against the screen and make a sound that Yuna described as the Korath version of purring. Her amber eyes would soften. Her whole body would relax. She loved them, even though they were far away, even though she might never see them again. She loved them like they were her own. The tribunal came in the third month. Captain GA had been unable to hide the truth forever. Eventually, the council had discovered that their orders had been ignored. They demanded answers. They demanded the Korath, but GA had not been idle during those 3 months. She had been gathering allies, scientists who had read Yuna's research, politicians who believed in second chances, military leaders who had grown tired of endless wars. The tribunal was held on Kepler's Rest, a large station at the edge of explored space. GA brought her entire crew as witnesses, and she brought Barum. The creature walked through the station's corridors with Dohan at her side. She was massive and terrifying, her black scales gleaming under the artificial lights, her claws clicking against the metal floor. People ran from her. Some screamed. Security teams tracked her with weapons drawn, but Barum ignored them all. She stayed close to Dohan, occasionally bumping her head against his shoulder, trusting him to lead her safely through this strange and frightening place. The tribunal chamber was filled with representatives from 100 different species. They watched in silence as the Korath entered, as she settled onto the floor beside Dawn, as her amber eyes scanned the crowd without fear. GA spoke first. She presented 3 months of evidence. Videos of Barum playing gently with toys. Records of her helping the crew detect a dangerous hull breach before the sensors caught it. Testimony from the Telleran children about how she had saved their lives. Then Taiwan spoke. He told the story of his brother, of his hatred, of how a monster had taught him that the world was more complicated than he had believed. Then Yuna spoke. She shared her research on Korath intelligence, on their social structures, on the possibility that centuries of conflict had been based on terrible misunderstandings. And finally, Dohan spoke. He stood beside Barum, his hand resting on her head, her amber eyes watching him with complete trust. 3 months ago, I found a wounded creature in a crashed shuttle, he said. Every instinct told me to run away. Every lesson I had ever learned said she was a monster, a threat, something to be feared and destroyed. He paused, looking around the chamber at all the faces watching him. But I'm a medic. My job is to help the wounded. So I helped her. And what I discovered changed everything I thought I knew. He looked down at Barum. She looked up at him. She's not a monster. She's a mother who lost her children and found new ones to love. She's not a threat. She's a protector who risked her life for strangers. She's not something to be feared. She's someone who just wanted to feel safe. Dahan's voice grew stronger. Humanity has always believed that we are special. That our compassion, our kindness, our ability to love are what make us unique in the universe. But what if we're not unique? What if other species feel these things too? What if we've been too afraid to see it? He gestured to Bahram. She held my arm for weeks because she was terrified of being alone again. She protected children she had never met because she could not bear to watch them suffer. She trusted me, a complete stranger, because I showed her one moment of kindness. Doan looked at the tribunal, at the representatives who held Bahram's fate in their hands. Humanity's greatest strength was never our weapons or our technology. It was our ability to look at something unknown and ask if it needs help. That is what makes us human. And today, I'm asking you to be human. I'm asking you to look at this creature, this person, this mother, and see her for who she really is. The chamber was silent. Then Bahram moved. She rose slowly to her full height, towering over everyone in the room. People gasped. Security teams raised their weapons, but Bahram did not attack. She did not growl. She did not threaten. She wrapped her massive appendage around Dahan's arm, gentle and careful, just like she had done on that first day. And she looked at the tribunal with eyes full of something that everyone recognized. Hope the vote was close. May still wanted to follow the old rules, to destroy what they feared, to maintain the world as they understood it. But enough voted differently. Enough looked at Bahram and saw what Dawn saw. Enough believed that the universe could be better than it had been. Karth alphas were reclassified, not as extinction-level threats, but as protected sentient species. Study programs were created. Communication efforts began. Centuries of war slowly started to transform into something new. And Bahram stayed with Dawn. She was granted provisional citizenship, with Dawn listed as her legal guardian. The crew of the Horizon's Edge thought this was very funny, given that Bahram was 5 times his size and could destroy a starship if she wanted to. But Bahram did not want to destroy anything. She wanted to stay close to the human who had saved her. She wanted to watch videos from her adopted children. She wanted to explore the universe with her new family. On the night the tribunal's decision was announced, Dawn sat in Bahram's quarters. She lay beside him, her massive head in his lap, her breathing slow and peaceful. "You can let go now," he told her softly. "You're safe. You'll always be safe." Bahram's amber eyes blinked up at him. Her appendage, which had been loosely wrapped around his arm, squeezed once. Not in fear, not in desperation, in love. She did not let go, and Dawn smiled, because he understood now. She was not holding on because she was scared. She was holding on because she had found something worth keeping. She had found family. She had found home, and she would never let go.